Welcome to Scintillations, the podcast where we explore hot takes on the business of branding, consumers, and culture. Each week, we talk to the top minds from businesses shaping tomorrow, cultural thought leaders, and people with an eye out for what's next. Whether you're a marketing professional, entrepreneur, or simply curious about the forces shaping the world of consumer business, we've got you covered. From the latest trends in consumer behavior to the cutting-edge strategies used by the world's top brands, we'll unpack it all, giving you the insights you'll need to stay ahead of the game. So, join us for scintillating conversations that will help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of modern business, including developments in artificial intelligence tools, like this voiceover. And now, your host, award-winning brand builder, Erica First.
Hi, Laura. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here chatting all things developments in AI.
Yes, I'm excited too. Why don't we get started with you introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. I am a corporate attorney with Dean Street Law. I worked in big law for over 7 years. I've been a corporate attorney for over a decade, and I started Dean Street Law 4 years ago. And I specialize in mergers and acquisitions, finance, real estate, intellectual property, which we'll talk a lot about today, contracts, fundraising. So basically transactional deal making, startups all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And then I have a couple businesses of my own. So I'm also an entrepreneur with a co-working and event space, of course, the law firm, a farm, an educational platform where I have contract templates and business courses, as well as lifestyle design courses, and a few other things in my pipeline. So lots going on in my world.
Why don't you sort of kick us off? And AI is the new thing. Everyone's talking about it. There's lots of opportunity, excitement. There will never be more millionaires made as fast thanks to AI. There is a lot of concern. We will lose 320 million jobs in the next 5 years. And as we were discussing before, I find that we tend to make fantastic innovations and then think about, oh, wait, maybe this should be there. Maybe this should be protected. So in the legal community, what are some of the user concerns that are coming up?
Absolutely. So we're speaking really about a subset of AI, right? So there's a lot of different components of AI. And so our conversation is really focused on AI generated content, right? And so you've got things like different platforms and everything, open source AI, closed source AI that's generating content. And can that content be copyrightable? What if you use that content in conjunction? Can you copyright that AI generated content itself? Can you copyright hybrid AI generated content that human is involved in some way with working with? And then how also does that AI generated content stand on its own? Is it violating copyright? And is it infringing on copyright? Is it infringing on someone's right to publicity and their right to not be publicized and their right to their unique voice and their unique face, et cetera? So there's a lot of different principles here, but specifically what we're talking about with AI generated content, which is very popular right now and use in business settings and everything. That's a hot topic that the U.S. Copyright Office has weighed in on, that the U.S. Trademark Office has weighed in on, Congress has weighed in on. It is something that's evolving. So it's really important to note, especially as podcasts are evergreen, that this is a snapshot in time and we're having a conversation based on the information available today. But truly, the evolution of AI will be swift and quick. And so will the legalities involved. So this is a conversation you're going to have to track and follow over time to make sure that you're abreast of that information.
And just so people who may not know what the decisions were, the U.S. Copyright Office said in, I think, April of 2023, that any content produced through a generative AI without the significant, I think is a word that they use, which is important. Human input is not considered copyrightable. So that means anything with ChatGPT, anything with the thousands of writing tools that have been born out of ChatGPT, Mid-Journey, or any of the illustrative generative AIs, that anything that comes out of there is not copyrightable. Now, as we were discussing before, my friend is in the Writers Guild and was saying, yes, theoretically, this would be a hindrance for studios to want to work with AI, which is one of the points in the current writer's strike. But she said there's no way to prove it. So why say that it's not copyrightable if there's really no way to prove it? Or how would someone go about proving that there was no human involvement?
Metadata. So I disagree that there's no ability to prove it. Metadata is something, there's, cookie trackers that we don't see. There's crawlers on websites that we don't see. Just because we don't see it physically doesn't mean that it's not there. There is metadata that's tracking through documentation, creation, etc. When something's downloaded from the internet, from the source, etc. So it doesn't mean that it's not going to be something that could be funged. But there's some important components here which are really important. Why say something? Why would the U.S. Copyright Office come out and say something that they can't prove? Because they have proven it, and they've proven it in a number of situations. So it is required on your U.S. Copyright Office application in order to copyright a published work or some sort of creative work that you've created, you have to disclose whether it uses AI generative content. And if you do not disclose it and it's found out that it has been used, you could lose all those protections that you have generated from your copyright. So that's really, really significant. And how could that be proven? Well, I mean, if you bragged to someone and told someone and they could tell, if you say something or a competitor knows, or it's some way you're able to figure it out. So this goes to OpenAI and different AI platforms and the training that they're using for those AI platforms to develop the generative content, right? And so the strength of that platform and the training is all going to depend on whether that output is actually unique or it's going to infringe on someone's intellectual property or human rights of publicity. But we also have the issue that in order for them to create a training protocol for their AI platform, they have to copy all of the works that are already out there in the public domain. And copyright law prevents users from being able to just copy works. That's part of the copyright law and what we have as copyrights. And so it's kind of being determined at this stage whether AI platforms copying mass indexes of work is a violation of existing copyrights. Google did this. So Google, in order to index published works, they had to make a copy of it. But courts found that was for the public benefit. And so because that was for the public benefit, that wasn't a violation of the copyright laws. And so now we're trying to figure out, there's going to be so many different issues that balloon out of this, but one of them is just the developing training for the AI platforms a violation of existing copyrights because they have to copy those materials in order to generate a training protocol.
Yeah. Could you infringe on someone else's rights without even knowing it?
Absolutely. And that's why I mentioned how important the AI is. So yes, you can, because if the AI isn't very good, yes, in dispersed open AI, the likelihood that there's going to be a direct copy violation resulting from the generative content is small, but that doesn't mean that every platform has, the best protocols, the best training. And so the likelihood could be very high that you have a direct copyright violation in that your work has important words from another type of another artist or another creator.
So the other day I was playing around with it because I like to test it, right? And I had written an article of my own, and I had 3 very specific cases that I was talking about. So I put it into Chat GPT to say, write about this, write about this, write about this. And what came out of it was pure fiction. Now, if I hadn't known what the actual scenario was of those situations, and I just took this and presented it to whomever, if somebody was asking me for an article or a blog, at what point are we liable for the misinformation that comes out of these generated tools?
Everyone's liable. I mean, this goes to journalism and reporting and the liabilities involved in journalism and reporting, right? You have slander and a whole host of other types of violations that you could make in getting information incorrect. So it depends on what that information is, what the context is, what the implications are. But absolutely, you're responsible, whether it's from a liability perspective or for me, it's I am proud of the work that I create, and I have a stamp of my quality of work that's imbued in everything that I do. And I want to make sure that all of my work upholds that. And so the thing with AI generated content is it's only as good as its sources. But the internet itself as a whole is not a great source. That's why we have citations. That's why we have research. That's why we look into the strength and authority of each reference. As a lawyer, that's something very important to our practice, making sure that the sources that we are taking our information from and deriving our thoughts and opinions from are well documented, they're reputable sources, they're authoritative sources. And so all of those components aren't factors that at this time, at least, have not been factored into AI generated content. They haven't said, are you fact checking? They don't have ways to fact check or idea check things. And personally, I wouldn't want to be putting out content that is not up to the standard that I would produce. I think it's a great starter. Outline, research, generate ideas, pull information, use it as a tool. And this is an important distinction too in copyright law is and the current arguments that are happening. There's arguments that AI generated content is copyrightable because AI is like a tool, like a camera is. And so if you are the user, you're using this tool to generate content. Now, there's a lot of other, this has not been accepted. That argument has not been accepted at this point.
Let me go meta for a second here and be difficult and devil's advocate. If the material that comes out of a Chat GPT can't be copyrighted and I publish it and it's filled with non-factual information, how can I be liable if it's not copyrightable material? It says you can't own this because it's not your work. Well, then I publish it and it's full of lies and something happens. How am I liable for that if I can't own it?
So the reason it's not copyrightable is because it's not generated by a human. And so that's an element that the U.S. Copyright Office has enacted for copyrightable material. And so who technically can own the content? So ownership is different than whether it's copyrightable.
Okay.
And so owns it might be determined by the terms and conditions of the platforms. And so it's unclear in some platforms who owns the AI generated content, which is also important because you can't copyright something that you don't generate, that you don't create and don't own, right? So we've got a couple different layers at issue here. And you might be liable to the other party and let's say the platform, if the platform has in their terms and conditions that they own all the AI generated content. So ownership is different than copyrightability, but that doesn't necessarily excuse you from any liability with respect to publishing something. So let's say something's slander. Just because you didn't generate it didn't mean that you didn't say it, right? And so you saying it, publishing it, etc., if it's slanderous, if it's fiction, if it's misinformation, and it impacts the reputation of another, a company, a person, etc., that's still slander, right? Doesn't matter if you came up with the lie, you still said it and you still published it. So that is a couple different ways of thinking about this in terms of the different legalities involved in the different sections of this.
So if you don't check your work, check what comes out of ChatGPT for plagiarism, for fact, truthiness, you are still 100% liable for what you publish.
Absolutely.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm getting into hypotheticals now because just for fun. Two different people in two different places put two different prompts into ChatGPT. The same idea comes out. They produce some sort of creative work based on these two ideas that are identical. What happens then?
So this is an infinity theory. And so the infinity theory is that if you gave monkeys infinity to write, they would eventually write Shakespeare, and they would eventually essentially produce in their own way the exact same thing, right? And this is something that's happened a lot through history, whether it's coincidental, there might have been unrecorded transmissions of information, but you have a lot of scientific principles, important theories and everything that have been developed in different places in the world at different times. And there's been no evidence that there was any way for that information transmission from one culture or country to another. So it's basically the same thing as that infinity theorem. So there's a couple things at issue here. This is not exhaustive because there's going to be a lot of things at issues here. So copyright is a U.S. right. So first off, you have U.S.-based laws that are applying for copyrights, whereas you have other laws in other countries that are different, which is why you have a lot of intellectual property protection based in the U.S., but it doesn't always convert to countries where they don't have that same infrastructure to protect copyrights. So you have the different laws that are going to apply. So let's say if someone's in Ukraine versus someone in the US, Ukraine law versus US law, and then you've got the complication of, well, if it's published to the world, how does that implicate and which law would apply? So you've got competing jurisdictions that might be at issue. And then whether it's copyrightable to begin with, we've already kind of gone over. But then if, let's say, it's under the jurisdiction of US law, let's say someone was in Alabama and someone was in Texas and this happened, then it would be first, let's say, assuming it was copyrightable, which we know at this point, AI generative content is not copyrightable. It would be first in time and the first one to publish that. So if it was the exact same time, you've got a real issue. It's going to be determined on evidence and in court, and it's probably going to be a lengthy battle if it's anything worth having a litigation battle at all. But that's kind of the different ways to think about it. What jurisdiction is going to apply, whether it's even copyrightable to begin with, and then under those laws, what are going to be the priorities and who's going to have a priority of right over one another.
Okay. So I'll give you a break from all those hypotheticals. The other day, I saw a professor post about a mental health tool that is based on AI, and the tool was positioning itself as a therapeutic aid, right? Which is very specific language. And essentially what happens is you can come on this app and you talk to the person on the other side. And I assume it's been trained to respond in the parameters of mental health, but it is obviously not a psychologist. It is not licensed. I found this to be incredibly I mean, at bare minimum, false advertising. At the most, gross negligence, because if something happens as a result from one of those conversations, who's to blame at that point? So, what about situations like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be so contextual in terms of what does the contract say? What are they representing themselves as? How are they clearly communicating, whether it's a human or a not human or an AI who you're speaking with? So a lot of that is going to be super fact specific as to the liability and how they've limited that liability and how they've addressed those concerns. But that's a highly, what do you say, right place for a whole lot of issues.
Yeah.
Just like literally regulated industry, you have very high likelihood of liability, very high likelihood of a problem coming. This is the same thing as having self-driving cars, right? And that's why you don't see very many on the market at this point. And they've been decades in the making. And so the reason why is because there's a very high liability associated there. It only takes one mistake to wipe out a whole company. Brake failures have wiped out a full company before due to liability exposure. The same thing applies for self-driving cars. The same thing applies for AI involved services, especially in the mental health industry. So how you use AI, I think it's really important. We discuss AI, we discuss the legalities of AI, we talk about the risks, the pros, the cons, but ultimately we have to be good stewards of technology. And like you said, we create technology and then we say, oh, hey, here it is. How do we handle it? And that goes to our ethics, which are really, really important in how we handle and appropriately utilize technology in our world. And something like that, for me, ethically, I could never put my name behind. I could never use that because to me, it's just not worth it. The risk that it harms one person is greater than the benefit of helping thousands to me. And that's my ethics. And we all have to ask ourselves where our ethics are and how we can be good stewards of technology in order to allow the evolution of technology in a really responsible way.
Do you think that, because obviously the regulations are way behind the innovation here, will they catch up? Is it impossible to regulate? What do you think is going to happen in terms of regulation and AI in the future?
We're going to have steering committees. I would imagine we're going to start to have steering committees. If there isn't already a steering committee at the House, in Congress, I'm sure there's committees in the U.S. Copyright Office. I think that people are going to be keeping a pulse on something. Government moves slowly, regulations move slowly, court decisions move slowly. They are reactive, but that's part of our economy and that's part of our governmental structure that I think is really important, that we have an open economy, that we have a free economy, that we're able to use and implement ideas and then determine the regulations that apply to them. You're going to see, and this happens a lot, there's swings in regulation and deregulation. It follows political cycles, it follows economic cycles, it follows realizing how overly taxing regulations can be. I think if you operate a business, how hard regulations, laws can really put a strain on a business in terms of getting it off the ground, continuing to operate it. The cost is there. The tax and burden of the attention and time and energy that you have to put into it, as well as hiring legal resources to address it. So we have an economy that supports to be able to support that innovation. But I think you'll probably see that we're going to have a huge wave of regulations, and then we're probably going to have those regulations be scaled back a bit so that they're not overly onerous. I think you're going to start to see that in AI, that there's going to be consolidation. There's going to be, frankly, AI companies that go bust quite quickly because of liability and not protecting themselves well and not taking the obligations to comply with law seriously enough. So, ideally, those companies would have in their core team, a legal team, this is going to be an area that it's going to be evolving quickly. You're going to have to devote a lot of legal resources to it. If you want to play in this industry, you're going to need to comply with law. Otherwise, it's not sustainable.
Okay. So Laura, how can people get in touch with you if they want to work with you? What projects do you take on and where would they get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at deanstreetlaw.com, and both of these are going to be in the show notes and everything. deanstreetlaw.com. My LinkedIn is linked in the show notes, as well as the shop. In the shop, I have a course on copyright. It's currently available for pre-order, and then will be available for general use as well. We have the startup bundle. So if you're starting your business and need to start up a single member LLC, if you have a website and need to get all the documents to comply with law for your website, we have the website bundle. And then so that's the shop. I have contracts, templates, legal courses, business courses, lifestyle design courses. And then for Dean Street Law, that is my law firm where it covers corporate law, anything transactional, non-litigation. So mergers and acquisitions, finance, real estate, intellectual property, contracts, fundraising, fund formation, general corporate transactions, corporate governance, all those fun things.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This is fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you.